Maria Santos had always been different from the other girls in her small Texas border town. While they spent their evenings at the local diner or mall, she was at the gym, pushing her body to its limits. At 19, she stood 5 feet 8 inches tall, with shoulders that spoke of countless hours lifting weights and a determined jaw that warned people not to underestimate her. The military recruiter had visited her high school 3 times before she finally agreed to meet with him. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez saw something in Maria that others missed, a fire that burned beneath her quiet exterior, a strength that went beyond her impressive physical capabilities. He knew she would make an exceptional soldier. "The Army will give you purpose," Rodriguez had told her during their final meeting at the local recruitment office. "You have potential, Santos, more than you realize." Maria's family had mixed feelings about her decision. Her mother, Elena, worried constantly about sending her only daughter into harm's way. Her father, Miguel, who had worked construction his entire life, was proud but concerned. They had immigrated from Mexico when Maria was 5 years old, seeking better opportunities for their children. The military represented both their American dream and their deepest fears. The night before she left for basic training, Maria sat in her childhood bedroom, staring at the acceptance letter from Fort Benning. The room felt smaller than she remembered, filled with remnants of a life she was about to leave behind. Trophies from high school track and field competitions lined her dresser, and photos of friends covered her mirror. But Maria's attention was drawn to something else entirely. Hidden beneath her mattress was a folded piece of paper containing a design she had drawn years ago. It was intricate and meaningful, telling a story that only she fully understood. The image showed a phoenix rising from flames, but woven throughout the design were symbols representing her journey. A small cross for her faith, intertwined roses for her grandmother who had raised her during her parents' work, and hidden within the phoenix's wings were dates that marked the most significant moments of her life. Maria had always known she would get this tattoo someday, but she had been waiting for the right moment. Now, with her military service about to begin, it felt like that moment had arrived. 2 days before reporting to Fort Benning, Maria walked into Ink and Steel, the only tattoo parlor in town that had a reputation for quality work. The owner, Jake Morrison, was a former Marine who understood the significance of military service. When Maria showed him her design, his eyes widened with appreciation. "This is incredible work," Jake said, studying the detailed drawing. "Did you design this yourself?" Maria nodded. "It means everything to me. Every line, every symbol has significance." Jake spent the next hour asking Maria about each element of the design. He learned that the phoenix represented her rebirth through joining the military, leaving behind a life of limited opportunities for one filled with purpose. The roses honored her grandmother, Isabella, who had taught her about strength and resilience during the difficult years when her parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. The cross represented not just her faith, but her belief that she was meant for something greater than the small town where she had grown up. The tattooing process took nearly 8 hours, spread across 2 sessions. Jake was meticulous, understanding that this piece would be with Maria for the rest of her life. As he worked, they talked about military service, about leaving home, and about the courage it takes to pursue your dreams despite the fears of those who love you. "Where are you planning to place this?" Jake had asked during their consultation. "My back," Maria replied without hesitation, "right between my shoulder blades. I want it to be large enough to tell the whole story." The placement was significant. Maria knew that military regulations regarding tattoos were strict, and visible tattoos could limit her opportunities for advancement. But a tattoo on her back would be concealed by her uniform, allowing her to carry this personal piece of art with her throughout her service, without it affecting her career. When the tattoo was completed, Maria stood in front of Jake's full-length mirror, turning to see the finished work. The phoenix spread across her back in stunning detail, its wings extending from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. The colors were vibrant yet tasteful, deep reds and oranges for the flames, rich purples and blues in the phoenix's feathers, and delicate greens in the rose stems. It was more than a tattoo. It was a masterpiece that told her life story in visual form. "It's perfect," Maria whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Jake smiled with pride. "You wear it well, Santos. Let it remind you of your strength when things get tough. Maria's parents noticed the change in her demeanor immediately when she returned home that evening. There was something different about the way she carried herself, more confident, more certain of her path. They attributed it to her upcoming departure for basic training, not knowing about the artwork that now adorned her back. The night before leaving for Fort Benning, Maria's extended family gathered for a farewell dinner. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends filled their small home, creating a warm but emotional atmosphere. Everyone wanted to share advice, express their pride, and voice their concerns about her decision to join the military. "Promise us you'll be careful, Mija," her Aunt Carmen said, holding Maria's hands tightly. "The world is dangerous, especially for young women." Maria's uncle Roberto, who had served briefly in the National Guard, pulled her aside during the evening. "The military will test you in ways you can't imagine," he said quietly. "They'll try to break you down so they can build you back up into a soldier. Don't let them take away who you are inside." As the evening progressed, Maria found herself thinking about the tattoo hidden beneath her blouse. It felt like a secret source of strength, a reminder of her identity that no amount of military training could erase. She thought about her grandmother's stories of survival, about the generations of strong women who had come before her, and about the dreams she carried for the future. Later that night, alone in her room, Maria carefully packed her belongings. The military had provided a list of approved items for basic training, and she followed it meticulously. But hidden in her toiletry bag, she placed a small photograph of her grandmother and a letter Isabella had written her before passing away 2 years earlier. The letter contained advice about strength, courage, and staying true to yourself even when the world tries to change you. "Remember, Mija," Isabella had written, "true strength comes from knowing who you are, not from what others expect you to be." Maria also packed the original drawing of her tattoo design. Though the artwork was now permanently part of her, she wanted to keep the paper as a reminder of the moment she decided to honor her journey with something permanent and beautiful. The bus to Fort Benning would leave at 6 a.m., and Maria barely slept that night. She spent hours staring at the ceiling, thinking about what lay ahead. Basic training would last 16 weeks, followed by advanced individual training for her chosen military occupational specialty. She had scored exceptionally well on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, qualifying her for numerous technical fields within the Army. Maria had chosen military intelligence as her career field, drawn to the analytical challenges and the opportunity to serve in a capacity that utilized her intellectual abilities. The decision had surprised her recruiter, who had initially suggested she consider military police or combat support roles based on her physical capabilities. "Intelligence work requires a different kind of strength," Rodriguez had explained during their career counseling session. "It's about mental toughness, attention to detail, and the ability to see patterns that others miss." As dawn approached, Maria stood in front of her bedroom mirror one last time. She carefully removed her shirt and turned to glimpse the tattoo on her back. The phoenix seemed to glow in the early morning light filtering through her window. Its wings appeared ready for flight, much like Maria herself. She thought about the conversations she had overheard between her parents and other family members. Many of them questioned whether she was making the right choice, whether a young woman from their small town could succeed in the demanding world of military service. But looking at the phoenix on her back, Maria felt certain of her decision. The tattoo represented more than personal expression. It was a declaration of independence, a symbol of her transformation from a small-town girl with limited options to a young woman ready to serve her country and pursue her dreams. Every detail of the design reinforced her commitment to this new path. At 5:30 a.m., Maria's parents drove her to the bus station. The goodbye was emotional but brief, as military regulations required punctual reporting. As she climbed aboard the bus with 37 other recruits from her region, Maria felt the weight of the moment. She was leaving everything familiar behind to enter a world she knew only through stories and movies. During the 4-hour bus ride to Fort Benning, Maria sat quietly, observing her fellow recruits. They came from diverse backgrounds, small rural towns, major cities, different racial and ethnic groups, but they all shared a common purpose. Some appeared confident and eager, others nervous and uncertain. A few boasted loudly about their physical abilities or their reasons for joining, while others, like Maria, remained quietly introspective. One recruit, a young man named David from Atlanta, struck up a conversation with Maria during a rest stop. "You seem pretty calm for someone heading into basic training," he observed. Maria smiled. "I've been preparing for this for a long time." "What about you?" David explained that he had joined the Army to gain technical skills and earn money for college. His story was similar to many others Maria would meet during her service. Young people seeking opportunity, education, and purpose through military service. As the bus approached Fort Benning, Maria felt a familiar sensation. The same mixture of nervousness and excitement she had experienced before major track competitions in high school. But this was different. This was the beginning of a completely new chapter in her life. The first glimpse of the military installation was imposing. Tall fences, security checkpoints, and seemingly endless rows of identical buildings stretched as far as Maria could see. Signs everywhere reminded visitors that this was a restricted military facility where serious business was conducted. As the bus passed through the main gate, Maria touched her back unconsciously, feeling the slight tenderness that remained from her recent tattoo. The Phoenix was ready to begin its flight, and Maria Santos was ready to discover what she was truly capable of becoming. Fort Benning hit Maria like a physical blow. The moment she stepped off the bus, drill sergeants were screaming instructions, demanding immediate compliance, and establishing the harsh reality that would define the next 16 weeks of her life. The transformation from civilian to soldier began instantly and brutally. "Move, move, move. You are no longer individuals. You are my property for the next 4 months." Drill Sergeant Williams, an intimidating woman in her mid-30s with eyes like steel, commanded absolute attention. "Everything you think you know about yourselves is wrong. We're going to tear you down and rebuild you into United States Army soldiers." Maria found herself assigned to Alpha Company, along with 49 other female recruits. Their barracks were stark and unwelcoming, rows of bunk beds, metal lockers, and concrete floors that echoed with every footstep. Privacy was non-existent, personal space was a luxury they could no longer expect, and every moment of their day would be scheduled, monitored, and critiqued. The first week was a blur of medical examinations, uniform fittings, administrative processing, and initial fitness assessments. Maria excelled in the physical tests, completing more push-ups and sit-ups than most of her peers, and finishing the 2-mile run in an impressive time. Her years of athletic training served her well, but she quickly learned that basic training was about more than physical capability. Drill Sergeant Martinez, a compact man with 20 years of service, seemed particularly interested in challenging the recruits who showed early promise. During their second week, he pulled Maria aside after a particularly grueling morning of physical training. "Santos, you think you're hot stuff because you can run fast and do push-ups?" he asked, his face inches from hers. "No, Drill Sergeant," Maria replied, maintaining the required position of attention. "You're right about that. Physical ability is only the beginning. The real test is whether you can follow orders, work as part of a team, and maintain military bearing under pressure. Can you handle that?" "Yes, Drill Sergeant." Martinez studied her for a long moment. "We'll see." As the weeks progressed, Maria found herself adapting to military life with surprising ease. The early morning formations, the rigorous physical training, the classroom instruction on military customs and courtesies. It all felt natural to her. But she also noticed that she was drawing unwanted attention from some of her fellow recruits. Jennifer Walsh, a recruit from Ohio who had struggled with the physical demands of training, seemed particularly resentful of Maria's success. During their third week, tensions came to a head during a weapons cleaning session. "Santos thinks she's better than everyone else," Jennifer muttered to her bunkmate, loud enough for Maria to hear. Miss Perfect with her fancy technique and her show-off attitude. Maria looked up from the M4 rifle she was methodically cleaning. "I don't think I'm better than anyone. I'm just trying to do my job." "Right," Jennifer scoffed. "You're always front and center, always volunteering for extra duty, always making the rest of us look bad." Other recruits in the barracks began to pay attention to the conversation. Maria felt the tension rising and tried to diffuse the situation. "We're all here for the same reason. We should be supporting each other, not tearing each other down." "Easy for you to say when you're the drill sergeant's favorite," Jennifer replied. The accusation stung because Maria worried it might be true. She had noticed that the drill sergeant seemed to call on her frequently for demonstrations and leadership opportunities. But she attributed this to her performance, not favoritism. The conflict with Jennifer escalated over the following days. Small incidents of sabotage began occurring. Maria's bunk would be messed up just before inspections, her equipment would go missing, and rumors about her would circulate through the company. Maria tried to ignore these petty attacks, but they wore on her emotionally. During their 4th week, the recruits faced their first major field training exercise. They would spend 5 days in the Georgia wilderness, learning basic combat skills, survival techniques, and teamwork under challenging conditions. Maria was excited about the opportunity to apply their training in a realistic environment. The exercise began before dawn on a Monday morning. Alpha Company marched 12 miles to their training area, carrying full packs and weapons. The march tested their endurance and unit cohesion, and Maria found herself naturally falling into a leadership role, helping struggling recruits and maintaining morale. Once they reached the field training site, the recruits were divided into smaller teams for various exercises. Maria found herself assigned to a squad led by Jennifer Walsh, who had been selected as a squad leader despite her earlier struggles. Maria suspected this assignment was intentional. The drill sergeants wanted to see how they would work together under pressure. Their first mission was a navigation exercise that required the squad to move through dense woods to reach a series of checkpoints using only map and compass. Jennifer struggled with the navigation from the beginning, making several errors that led the squad off course. Maria noticed the mistakes but hesitated to correct her squad leader publicly. After 2 hours of wandering through increasingly difficult terrain, the squad was hopelessly lost. Jennifer was becoming frustrated and defensive, snapping at team members who offered suggestions. Finally, Maria made the decision to speak up. "Jennifer, I think we need to take a break and reassess our position," Maria said diplomatically. "Maybe we can work together to figure out where we are." "I know where we are, Santos," Jennifer replied angrily. "I don't need your help." But it was clear to everyone that Jennifer did not know where they were. Other squad members began looking to Maria for guidance, which only made Jennifer more defensive. The situation deteriorated rapidly, with Jennifer making increasingly poor decisions and the squad falling further behind schedule. Finally, as evening approached and the squad had failed to reach even their first checkpoint, Jennifer made an announcement that would change everything. "This is all Santos's fault," she declared to the assembled squad members. "She's been undermining my leadership all day, confusing everyone with her suggestions. She thinks she knows better than everyone else." Maria felt her temper rising, but tried to maintain her composure. "Jennifer, I've only tried to help. We need to work together if we're going to complete this mission." "No, we need you to keep your mouth shut and follow orders," Jennifer shot back. "That's what good soldiers do. They follow orders without question." The other squad members exchanged uncomfortable glances. It was clear to everyone that Jennifer was deflecting blame for her poor performance. But military hierarchy demanded that they support their appointed leader. Maria made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. Instead of continuing to argue or trying to take over leadership of the squad, she stepped back and followed Jennifer's direct order to remain silent. For the remainder of the exercise, Maria said nothing, offered no suggestions, and watched as Jennifer led them deeper into confusion and failure. By the time the exercise ended, Jennifer's squad had completed only half of their assigned objectives and had to be rescued by drill sergeants when they failed to reach their final checkpoint by the designated time. The squad faced consequences, extra duty, additional physical training, and a strong critique of their performance. During the after-action review, Drill Sergeant Martinez addressed the squad's failures directly. This exercise was designed to test your ability to work together under pressure. Some of you failed that test completely. Jennifer immediately tried to shift blame. "Drill Sergeant, Santos was undermining my leadership all day. She kept trying to take over and confuse my decisions." Martinez looked at Maria. "Santos, is that accurate?" Maria felt a moment of decision. She could defend herself, explain what really happened, and potentially create an even bigger conflict. Or she could accept the consequences and move forward. Remembering her grandmother's advice about choosing battles wisely, she made her choice. "I followed Squad Leader Walsh's orders, Drill Sergeant," Maria replied simply. Martinez studied both women for a long moment. "Interesting. Walsh, Explain to me exactly what orders you gave Santos. Jennifer hesitated, realizing that she was about to reveal her own poor leadership. I told her to keep her mouth shut and follow orders. And did she follow that order? Yes, Drill Sergeant. Martinez nodded slowly. So Santos followed your orders exactly, and your squad still failed completely. What does that tell you about the quality of your leadership? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jennifer had no good answer, and the rest of the squad began to understand the lesson Martinez was teaching. Good leadership isn't about silencing dissent or maintaining authority through intimidation. It's about utilizing the strengths of your team and making effective decisions under pressure. But the damage was done. Jennifer's public accusation that Maria was undermining authority had created a narrative that would follow Maria throughout the rest of basic training. Some recruits believed Jennifer's version of events, while others recognized what had really happened. The company became divided, with Maria finding herself isolated from some of her peers. The isolation deepened over the following weeks. Maria continued to excel in training, but her relationships with some fellow recruits remained strained. She found herself eating alone sometimes, excluded from casual conversations, and facing subtle forms of harassment from Jennifer's supporters. During their 8th week, the company faced the Army Combat Fitness Test, a comprehensive evaluation of their physical and military skills. Maria prepared extensively, knowing that her performance would be scrutinized more closely than others due to the ongoing tensions within the unit. The test included 6 events: a 3-repetition maximum deadlift, a standing power throw with a medicine ball, hand-release push-ups, a sprint drag carry event, leg tucks, and a 2-mile run. Maria approached each event with determination, knowing that excellence was her only protection against continued criticism. She dominated the tests, scoring in the top percentile in every event. Her deadlift numbers were impressive, her sprint times were exceptional, and her 2-mile run was the fastest in the company. But instead of earning respect from her critics, her performance seemed to intensify their resentment. After the test, Maria overheard Jennifer talking to other recruits in the latrine. She's showing off again. Probably thinks this'll get her some kind of special recognition. The drill sergeants eat this stuff up. Maria felt a flash of anger, but remembered her grandmother's teachings about dignity and grace under pressure. She said nothing and simply continued with her evening routine. That night, as Maria lay in her bunk, she thought about the tattoo on her back. The phoenix rising from flames seemed particularly relevant to her current situation. She was being tested in ways she hadn't expected, facing challenges that had nothing to do with physical strength or military knowledge. This was about character, resilience, and the ability to maintain her values when others tried to tear her down. Over the following days, Maria made a decision about how to handle the situation. Instead of fighting back against the criticism or trying to prove her worth to people who were determined to dislike her, she would focus entirely on being the best soldier she could be. She would lead by example, support her fellow recruits when possible, and let her actions speak for themselves. This approach began to pay dividends as the weeks progressed. Recruits who had initially been swayed by Jennifer's criticisms began to see Maria's true character. They noticed that she never spoke badly about others, always offered help when needed, and consistently performed at a high level without arrogance or self-promotion. During their 12th week, Alpha Company faced their final major test before graduation, a comprehensive field exercise that would last an entire week and simulate real combat conditions. The exercise would test everything they had learned and determine their readiness to advance to advanced individual training. As the company prepared for this final challenge, Maria felt a sense of anticipation mixed with uncertainty. She knew she was ready technically and physically, but she wondered about the interpersonal dynamics that would play out during the high-stress environment of the exercise. The night before the exercise began, Maria sat quietly in the barracks, mentally reviewing everything she had learned over the past 3 months. She thought about her family, her grandmother's wisdom, and the journey that had brought her to this point. Most of all, she thought about the phoenix on her back and what it represented: transformation through trial, strength through struggle, and the ability to rise above challenges that would break others. Tomorrow would be another test, but Maria Santos was ready. She had been forged in the fire of basic training and was emerging stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the courage and grace her grandmother had taught her, carrying the strength of generations of strong women who had overcome their own trials. The Phoenix was ready to spread its wings. The final field exercise at Fort Benning would determine everything. After 14 weeks of intense training, Alpha Company faced their most comprehensive test, a week-long simulation that would push every recruit to their absolute limits. Maria understood that success here would not only determine her graduation from basic training, but also influence her assignment to advanced individual training and potentially her entire military career. The exercise began at 0300 hours on a cold Georgia morning. Recruits assembled in full combat gear, carrying everything they would need for 7 days in the field. The weight of her pack combined with her weapon and additional equipment totaled nearly 70 pounds. Maria had trained for this moment, building her strength and endurance specifically for this challenge. Drill Sergeant Williams addressed the company in the pre-dawn darkness. This week will test everything you have learned. You will face combat scenarios, survival situations, leadership challenges, and physical demands that will push you beyond what you think is possible. Some of you will succeed, others will not. The company was divided into 4 platoons, with each platoon facing different scenarios throughout the week. Maria found herself assigned to 3rd Platoon, led by Staff Sergeant Carter, a tough but fair non-commissioned officer who had served multiple combat deployments. To Maria's dismay, Jennifer Walsh was also assigned to 3rd Platoon, along with several of her supporters. The first scenario involved a 12-mile movement through difficult terrain to establish a forward operating base. 3rd Platoon would have to navigate using map and compass, maintain security throughout the movement, and arrive at their destination prepared to immediately begin defensive operations. Staff Sergeant Carter selected 4 squad leaders for the movement, and to Maria's surprise, he chose her as one of them. Santos, you'll lead 2nd Squad. I've been watching your performance throughout training, and I think you're ready for this responsibility. Maria felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Leading a squad during the final exercise was both an honor and an enormous responsibility. She also knew that her selection would likely intensify the resentment from Jennifer and her group. As 2nd Squad prepared for the movement, Maria studied her assigned team members. She had been given a mix of strong and weak performers, which she recognized as an intentional test of her leadership ability. Among her squad members was Private Thompson, a quiet recruit from Montana who excelled at fieldcraft but struggled with confidence, and Private Rodriguez, a former college athlete who was physically strong but sometimes questioned authority. The movement began at dawn, with 3rd Platoon spreading out in tactical formation across the Georgia wilderness. Maria positioned herself where she could maintain visual contact with her entire squad while also coordinating with adjacent units. The terrain was challenging. Dense woods, steep hills, and numerous water obstacles that slowed their progress. 4 hours into the movement, Private Rodriguez began to fall behind. The weight of his pack and the demanding pace were taking their toll, and Maria could see that he was struggling both physically and mentally. She made the decision to call a brief halt and address the situation. Rodriguez, what's your status? She asked quietly, keeping the conversation private to preserve his dignity. I'm fine, squad leader, he replied, but Maria could see that he was far from fine. Sweat poured down his face despite the cool morning temperature, and his breathing was labored. Maria made a quick decision. She redistributed some of Rodriguez's equipment among other squad members, including taking several pounds of gear herself. This violated the strict rule that each soldier was responsible for their own equipment, but Maria prioritized mission success and team welfare over rigid adherence to regulations. The redistribution worked, and Rodriguez was able to continue at the required pace. But Maria's decision had been observed by members of Jennifer's squad who were operating nearby. She knew this would likely be reported, and could result in negative consequences for her leadership evaluation. By mid-afternoon, 3rd Platoon had covered 8 of their required 12 miles when they encountered their first major challenge. Evaluators posing as enemy forces had established an ambush position along their planned route. The platoon would have to detect the ambush, react appropriately, and continue their mission. Staff Sergeant Carter was observing from a distance, evaluating how each squad leader handled the unexpected contact. Maria's squad was in the lead when they spotted movement ahead that indicated a potential threat. She immediately signaled for her squad to take cover and used hand signals to communicate the threat to the rest of the platoon. The simulated firefight that followed tested every aspect of their training. Maria had to coordinate her squad's movement, maintain communication with other units, and make tactical decisions under pressure, while blank ammunition cracked overhead and smoke grenades created realistic chaos. During the engagement, Private Thompson froze under pressure. Despite his excellent performance during training exercises, the realistic simulation overwhelmed him, and he became unable to function effectively. Maria noticed his paralysis immediately and had to make a split-second decision about how to handle the situation. Rather than publicly correcting Thompson or removing him from his position, Maria moved to a position where she could provide direct guidance while maintaining his dignity. "Thompson, I need you to cover our left flank," she said calmly. "You see that tree line? I need you to watch for movement and report anything you observe." The specific, concrete instruction helped Thompson regain his focus. By giving him a clear, manageable task, Maria enabled him to contribute to the mission while rebuilding his confidence. The technique worked, and Thompson performed effectively for the remainder of the engagement. 3rd Platoon successfully defeated the simulated ambush and continued their movement. But the day was far from over. As evening approached, they reached their designated location and began establishing their defensive position. This involved digging fighting positions, establishing fields of fire, setting up communication equipment, and organizing security rotations for the night. Maria's squad was assigned responsibility for the northern sector of their perimeter. The work was backbreaking, digging 2-person fighting positions in the hard Georgia soil while maintaining vigilance for potential enemy activity. Maria worked alongside her squad members, taking her turn with the entrenching tool and helping with the heavy lifting required to move logs and other materials for fortification. As darkness fell, 3rd Platoon faced their next challenge, maintaining security throughout the night while allowing some personnel to rest. Maria established a rotation schedule that ensured adequate security while maximizing rest for her soldiers. She also volunteered to take the most difficult watch, the period between 020 and 040 hours, when fatigue would be at its worst. During her watch, Maria reflected on the events of the day. She was proud of how her squad had performed, but she knew that the real tests were yet to come. The exercise would continue for 6 more days, with challenges that would become progressively more difficult and realistic. She thought about her tattoo and what it represented. The phoenix rising from flames seemed particularly relevant during these quiet hours in the Georgia wilderness. This exercise was her fire, the trial that would complete her transformation from civilian to soldier. But unlike the mythical phoenix that rose alone, Maria was learning that real strength came from lifting others up alongside herself. The second day brought new challenges and revealed the true complexity of military leadership. 3rd Platoon faced a series of scenarios designed to test their ability to operate as a cohesive unit under varying conditions. The day began with a pre-dawn attack on their position, followed by a movement to contact, and concluded with a complex urban warfare simulation. During the pre-dawn attack, Maria's squad performed excellently. Their defensive positions held against the simulated assault, and their coordinated response demonstrated the effectiveness of their previous day's preparation. But the success came at a cost. Several squad members sustained simulated injuries that would affect their capabilities for the remainder of the exercise. Private Thompson was designated as having a leg wound that would limit his mobility, while Private Martinez received a simulated arm injury that prevented him from carrying heavy equipment. Maria had to adjust her squad's organization and tactics to account for these limitations while maintaining their effectiveness. The movement-to-contact scenario tested Maria's ability to lead her squad in offensive operations. They had to advance through unfamiliar terrain, locate enemy positions, and coordinate an attack with adjacent units. The scenario was complicated by the fact that Jennifer's squad was operating on Maria's left flank, requiring close coordination between the two leaders. Despite their personal conflicts, Maria and Jennifer were forced to work together professionally. Maria approached this challenge with maturity, focusing entirely on mission accomplishment rather than personal animosity. During their coordination meetings, she was respectful, collaborative, and supportive of Jennifer's decisions. This professional approach began to have an unexpected effect. Jennifer, faced with Maria's consistent professionalism and competence, began to question her own behavior and attitudes. She observed how Maria treated her squad members with respect and dignity, while still maintaining high standards and achieving excellent results. The urban warfare simulation that concluded the second day was the most complex scenario 3rd Platoon had faced. They had to clear a mock village, searching buildings for enemy combatants while protecting civilians and avoiding booby traps. The scenario required precise coordination, attention to detail, and the ability to make split-second decisions with limited information. Maria's squad was assigned to clear the northern section of the village, which included several multi-story buildings with complex layouts. The task required careful planning, flawless execution, and absolute trust between squad members. Maria spent significant time preparing her team, reviewing building clearing procedures and ensuring everyone understood their specific roles. During the actual clearing operation, Maria's leadership skills were tested to their maximum. She had to coordinate movement between buildings, maintain communication with other squads, and make tactical decisions while managing the simulated injuries affecting several of her soldiers. The operation was successful, with her squad clearing their assigned buildings efficiently and safely. As the second day concluded, Staff Sergeant Carter gathered the squad leaders for an evaluation session. He provided feedback on their performance and outlined the challenges they would face in the coming days. When he addressed Maria privately, his comments were encouraging but also challenging. "Santos, your squad is performing exceptionally well," Carter said. "Your leadership style is effective, and your soldiers trust you. But I want to see how you handle adversity when things don't go according to plan. Tomorrow's scenarios will test your ability to adapt and overcome unexpected challenges." The third day would prove to be the most difficult of the entire exercise. 3rd Platoon faced a series of cascading problems designed to overwhelm their ability to cope with stress and uncertainty. The day began with a communications failure that left the platoon unable to contact higher headquarters, followed by a chemical attack simulation that required immediate protective measures. Maria's squad was conducting a reconnaissance mission when the chemical attack alarm sounded. They had seconds to don their protective masks and assume appropriate defensive postures. The masks made communication difficult and reduced visibility, adding another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. During the chemical attack response, Private Rodriguez panicked. Despite weeks of training with protective equipment, the realistic simulation overwhelmed his ability to think clearly. He began hyperventilating inside his mask and seemed on the verge of removing it, which would have resulted in simulated casualties from chemical exposure. Maria recognized the signs of Rodriguez's distress immediately. She moved to his position and used the buddy system techniques they had practiced, helping him control his breathing and maintain his composure. Through calm verbal guidance and physical reassurance, she helped Rodriguez regain control of himself and continue the mission effectively. The incident demonstrated Maria's ability to handle personnel challenges under extreme stress. Her quick thinking and compassionate leadership prevented what could have been a serious training accident while maintaining the integrity of the exercise. Later that day, 3rd Platoon faced their most complex scenario yet, a hostage rescue operation that required precise coordination between multiple elements. Maria's squad was designated as the primary assault element, responsible for neutralizing enemy guards and securing the hostages safely. The operation required split-second timing and flawless execution. Maria had to coordinate her squad's movement with supporting elements while maintaining the element of surprise and ensuring the safety of simulated hostages. Any mistake could result in mission failure or simulated casualties. During the planning phase, Maria demonstrated her growing confidence and tactical knowledge. She developed a detailed plan that accounted for multiple contingencies and ensured that every squad member understood their specific responsibilities. Her briefing was clear, comprehensive, and inspiring. The execution of the hostage rescue was nearly flawless. Maria's squad moved with precision and confidence, neutralizing threats quickly and efficiently, while ensuring the safety of all simulated hostages. The operation was completed within the designated time limit, and with no simulated friendly casualties. As the third day concluded, Maria felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with exhaustion. The challenges had been intense, but her squad had performed exceptionally well under her leadership. More importantly, she had proven to herself that she possessed the skills and temperament necessary for military leadership. That evening, as the squad prepared for another night of security operations, Private Thompson approached Maria privately. "Squad leader, I wanted to thank you for how you helped me yesterday when I froze up. You could have embarrassed me in front of everyone, but instead you gave me a way to contribute and regain my confidence." Maria smiled. "We're a team, Thompson. We succeed together or we fail together. You've been performing well since then, and that's what matters." The conversation reminded Maria of her grandmother's teachings about strength and compassion. True leadership wasn't about demonstrating personal superiority or demanding unquestioning obedience. It was about bringing out the best in others and helping them achieve more than they thought possible. As she settled into her fighting position for another long night of security duty, Maria reflected on how much she had changed since arriving at Fort Benning. The young woman who had stepped off the bus 14 weeks ago had been physically strong and mentally determined, but she had lacked the confidence and skills necessary for military leadership. Now, as she prepared for the final days of the exercise, Maria felt a deep sense of personal transformation. She had discovered capabilities within herself that she hadn't known existed. She had learned to make difficult decisions under pressure, to inspire others to overcome their limitations, and to maintain her values even when facing criticism and adversity. The phoenix on her back seemed to pulse with life in the cool Georgia night. The transformation was nearly complete, and Maria Santos was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead in her military career. Tomorrow would bring new tests, but she would face them with the confidence and competence she had earned through trial and perseverance. The final week of basic training arrived with an unexpected announcement that would change everything for Maria Santos and Alpha Company. Brigadier General Patricia Morrison, one of the highest-ranking female officers in the U.S. Reverie. Army would be conducting a personal inspection of the graduating recruits. The general's visit was part of a broader initiative to evaluate training programs and identify exceptional personnel for advanced leadership opportunities. General Morrison had built her career on breaking barriers and setting new standards for excellence in military service. As a combat veteran with multiple deployments and a reputation for demanding the highest standards from herself and others, her inspection would be more than ceremonial. She would be evaluating the quality of training, the readiness of the recruits, and identifying potential candidates for accelerated leadership development programs. The news of the general's visit created intense excitement and anxiety throughout Alpha Company. For most recruits, this would be their first encounter with such a high-ranking officer. The drill sergeants intensified their preparations, conducting additional inspections and rehearsals to ensure that every detail would be perfect for the general's arrival. Maria felt the weight of this moment particularly intensely. Throughout basic training, she had consistently performed at the highest levels and had emerged as one of the top candidates for honors at graduation. Her leadership during the final field exercise had been exemplary, and Staff Sergeant Carter had indicated that she was being considered for recognition as the outstanding graduate of her company. But Maria also carried the knowledge of her tattoo, the beautiful phoenix artwork that adorned her back. Military regulations regarding tattoos were strict and complex, and she had always been careful to ensure that her tattoo remained concealed beneath her uniform. While the artwork was technically within regulations, since it was not visible when wearing standard military clothing, Maria worried about how it might be perceived by senior leadership if discovered. The morning of General Morrison's inspection dawned clear and cold. Alpha Company assembled before dawn for final preparations, with each recruit undergoing meticulous uniform and equipment checks. The drill sergeants were more intense than usual, understanding that their own performance would be evaluated based on the readiness and bearing of their trainees. Maria stood in formation wearing her dress blue uniform, the formal military attire reserved for special occasions and ceremonies. The uniform was immaculate, every button polished to a mirror shine, every crease sharp enough to cut paper, every ribbon and badge positioned exactly according to regulations. She had spent hours the previous evening preparing her uniform and equipment, knowing that the general would notice even the smallest imperfections. General Morrison arrived exactly on schedule, accompanied by her aide and several other senior officers. She was an imposing figure, tall, confident, and carrying herself with the bearing that comes from years of command responsibility. Despite being in her late 40s, the general moved with the grace and energy of someone much younger, and her presence commanded immediate respect from everyone present. The inspection began with a review of the entire company in formation. General Morrison walked slowly along the ranks, observing each recruit's uniform, bearing, and military bearing. She asked occasional questions, testing their knowledge of military customs, their understanding of Army values, and their readiness for the next phase of their service. When the general reached Maria's position in the formation, she paused for a longer moment than usual. Maria maintained the position of attention, staring straight ahead while the general examined her uniform and equipment. The scrutiny was intense, but Maria remained perfectly still, demonstrating the discipline and composure she had developed throughout training. "Outstanding uniform preparation, soldier," General Morrison said. "What is your name and intended military occupational specialty?" "Private Santos, ma'am. I will be attending military intelligence training at Fort Huachuca, Arizona." The general nodded approvingly. "Military intelligence requires exceptional analytical skills and attention to detail. From what I can see, you possess both qualities. What motivates your interest in intelligence work?" Maria had prepared for this type of question, but she wanted to give an answer that reflected her genuine beliefs rather than a rehearsed response. "Ma'am, I believe that good intelligence can save lives and protect our nation's interests. I want to contribute to missions that make a real difference." General Morrison studied Maria's face, clearly evaluating not just her words but her sincerity and composure under pressure. "An excellent answer, Private Santos. I look forward to following your career." The general continued her inspection, but Maria felt that the brief interaction had been significant. General Morrison's reputation for identifying and mentoring promising junior personnel was well known throughout the Army, and her positive comments suggested that Maria had made a favorable impression. After the formal inspection, General Morrison conducted individual interviews with selected recruits who had been identified by their drill sergeants as Maria was among the 10 recruits chosen for these private discussions, which would take place in the company conference room. The interviews were designed to assess the recruits' potential for advanced responsibilities and their suitability for special programs that could accelerate their military careers. General Morrison was particularly interested in identifying individuals who could serve as role models and leaders for future generations of soldiers. When Maria's turn came for the interview, she entered the conference room to find General Morrison seated at a small table with her aide and a notepad. The general gestured for Maria to take the chair across from her, and the formal interrogation began. "Private Santos, your performance throughout basic training has been exceptional," General Morrison began. "Your drill sergeants speak very highly of your leadership potential, your physical capabilities, and your character. Tell me about a time during training when you faced a significant challenge and how you overcame it." Maria thought carefully about her response. She could discuss the conflicts with Jennifer Walsh, her leadership during the field exercises, or any number of training challenges. But she decided to focus on a moment that had truly tested her character and values. "Ma'am, during our final field exercise, one of my squad members was struggling with equipment weight during a long movement. I had to make a decision between following strict regulations about individual equipment responsibility and ensuring mission success and soldier welfare. I chose to redistribute some of his equipment among other squad members, including myself, even though it violated the letter of the regulations." General Morrison leaned forward, clearly interested in Maria's thought process. "That was a risk that could have resulted in negative consequences for your leadership evaluation. Why did you make that choice?" "Ma'am, I believe that good leadership means taking care of your people and accomplishing the mission. Sometimes that requires making difficult decisions that prioritize substance over strict adherence to rules. I was willing to accept personal consequences to ensure my soldier could continue to perform and my squad could complete its mission successfully." The general nodded approvingly. "Leadership often requires exactly that kind of judgment and moral courage. How did your decision ultimately affect your evaluation?" "Ma'am, initially some people criticized my choice, but the mission was successful and my soldier was able to continue performing effectively. I learned that good leadership sometimes means accepting criticism in the short term to achieve better long-term results." General Morrison spent the next 30 minutes asking detailed questions about Maria's background, her motivations for military service, and her career goals. The conversation revealed Maria's analytical thinking, her commitment to excellence, and her genuine desire to serve others through military leadership. As the interview progressed, Maria felt increasingly comfortable with the general's direct but respectful questioning style. General Morrison had a way of asking probing questions that revealed character and values without making the conversation feel like an interrogation. Private Santos, based on your performance and potential, I want to discuss some opportunities that might be available to you after you complete your initial training, General Morrison said. The Army has several programs for exceptional junior personnel that could accelerate your development as a leader and provide unique training opportunities. The General explained several options, including Officer Candidate School, specialized training programs, and assignments to high-visibility units that worked directly with senior leadership. Each option represented a significant opportunity for rapid advancement and increased responsibility. These opportunities are competitive and demanding, General Morrison continued. They require individuals who can maintain the highest standards of personal and professional conduct while serving as examples for others. Are you interested in pursuing these types of challenging assignments? Yes, ma'am, Maria replied without hesitation. I believe I can meet those standards and contribute effectively in demanding environments. General Morrison smiled, the first time during the interview that her formal demeanor had softened. I believe you can as well, Private Santos. However, I want to discuss something important with you. These advanced opportunities require absolute integrity and transparency. Is there anything about your background, your conduct during training, or your personal circumstances that I should know about before I recommend you for these programs? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maria felt a moment of internal conflict, thinking about the tattoo on her back. While it was within regulations and had been properly documented during her initial medical examination, she wondered if she should mention it specifically. But Maria had learned during basic training that honesty and transparency were fundamental military values. If she was going to be recommended for advanced opportunities that required the highest standards of integrity, she needed to demonstrate those standards in her interactions with senior leadership. Ma'am, there is one thing I should mention, Maria said carefully. I have a large tattoo on my back that was completed before I joined the Army. It is within regulations and was properly documented during my initial processing. But I wanted to ensure you were aware of it since you mentioned the importance of transparency. General Morrison's expression remained neutral. Can you describe the tattoo for me? Maria explained the Phoenix design, its personal significance, and the careful thought that had gone into its placement and artistic elements. She described how it represented her personal transformation and commitment to rising above challenges, emphasizing that every element of the design held deep meaning for her. I see, General Morrison replied. The imagery of a phoenix rising from flames is quite powerful, especially in the context of military service and personal growth. Would you be comfortable showing me this tattoo so I can evaluate it properly? Maria felt a moment of surprise and uncertainty. She had expected to discuss the tattoo, but she hadn't anticipated being asked to display it. However, she recognized that General Morrison's request was reasonable and professional, particularly given the opportunities they were discussing. Yes, ma'am, Maria replied. Where would be appropriate for that? General Morrison consulted with her aide briefly, then made arrangements for them to move to a private area where Maria could display the tattoo appropriately. The general's aide, Major Williams, remained present to ensure the situation remained professional and properly documented. In the privacy of an adjacent office, Maria carefully removed her uniform blouse and undershirt, standing with her back to General Morrison so the full extent of the Phoenix artwork could be observed. She felt vulnerable but also proud of the beautiful design that had come to represent so much of her personal journey. General Morrison examined the tattoo carefully, taking note of its artistic quality, placement, and the various symbolic elements Maria had described. The phoenix spread across Maria's back in stunning detail, its wings extending from shoulder blade to shoulder blade, with the intricate roses, cross, and other personal symbols woven throughout the design. For several long moments, the room was completely silent. Maria stood perfectly still, maintaining military bearing even in this unusual situation, while General Morrison studied the artwork that told the story of her transformation from civilian to soldier. Finally, General Morrison spoke, her voice carrying a tone that Maria had not heard before, a mixture of surprise, respect, and something else that was difficult to identify. Private Santos, the general said quietly. This is extraordinary workmanship, and the symbolism you've described is deeply meaningful. But I have to ask you something that might seem unusual. Maria turned around, having replaced her undershirt, and faced General Morrison with growing curiosity about what had captured the general's attention so intensely. "Ma'am?" General Morrison stepped closer, her expression serious but not disapproving. "The Phoenix design on your back, particularly the section near your left shoulder blade, includes some very specific details that caught my attention. Tell me about the small military insignia that's incorporated into the design." Maria felt a moment of confusion. She had designed the tattoo carefully and remembered every element, but she didn't recall including any military insignia in the artwork. "Ma'am, I don't believe there are any military insignia in the design. The symbols are personal, representing my faith, my family, and my journey." General Morrison studied Maria's face carefully. "Private Santos, are you aware that your Phoenix design includes what appears to be a very specific military unit patch embedded in the feathers near your left wing?" The statement hit Maria like a physical blow. She was certain that her tattoo design had included no military elements, as she had been careful to avoid anything that might violate regulations or seem inappropriate for someone who had not yet completed military training. "Ma'am, I can assure you that was not intentional. Could you please describe what you're seeing?" General Morrison's expression grew more serious. "The design appears to include the distinctive unit insignia of the 525th Military Intelligence Brigade, a unit I commanded early in my career. It's not prominently displayed, but it's definitely present in the artistic details of the Phoenix's left wing." Maria felt the world spinning around her. The accusation was impossible. But General Morrison was describing something very specific. How could her tattoo include a military unit patch that she had never heard of, incorporated by an artist she trusted implicitly? "Ma'am, I have no explanation for how that could have happened. The artist and I spent hours discussing every element of the design, and I can promise you that no military insignia were intended to be included." General Morrison nodded slowly. "I believe you, Private Santos. But this raises some very serious questions that we need to investigate immediately. This type of unauthorized use of military insignia in a tattoo could have significant consequences for your career and your security clearance eligibility." The room fell silent as the implications of the discovery began to sink in. Maria's dreams of advanced training, accelerated promotion, and exceptional service opportunities suddenly seemed to be crumbling around her. Everything she had worked for throughout basic training appeared to be in jeopardy because of something she had never intended and couldn't explain. But even as fear and uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her, Maria felt the strength of the Phoenix on her back. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever explanations were needed, whatever consequences she might face, she would handle them with the same integrity and courage that had carried her through the trials of basic training. The final test of her transformation was about to begin.